A machine flagged the tiniest threat, a 6mm shadow in Barbara's breast, a finding every expert missed. In 2016, AI legend Geoffrey Hinton declared doctors like these obsolete within 5 years. Instead, their salaries soared, job openings exploded, and the number of FDA-approved diagnostic AI systems surpassed 1,000. If the future promised in the documentary The AGI Takedown is already colliding with reality, whose judgment, human or machine, should you trust with your life? Let us begin where the miracle meets the myth. Barbara sat in the waiting room expecting another routine screening. The mammogram had already been read by 2 radiologists, both found nothing worth worrying about. But the hospital's new diagnostic system, trained on hundreds of thousands of breast images, flagged a faint shadow deep in the tissue. The algorithm assigned it a high-risk score, highlighting a spot less than the width of a pencil eraser, just 6 millimeters across. Her doctor hesitated. The image looked like a harmless artifact, something that could happen with a slight movement or a wrinkle in the film. But protocol demanded a second look. The technologist called Barbara back for another scan, this time with extra care to match the AI coordinates. The shadow held steady. That triggered a biopsy order. Days later, the pathology report confirmed the truth. Invasive ductal carcinoma, caught at stage 1. The tumor was so small it would have been invisible to the touch for months. Surgery removed it before it could spread. Barbara's prognosis shifted from uncertain to overwhelmingly positive, all because a machine refused to dismiss what human eyes overlooked. In the UK NHS screening trials, stories like this are becoming more common. One 2024 study found that AI-assisted mammography detected 20% more cancers than radiologists alone, including several cases under 10 millimeters. At Mount Sinai, an FDA-cleared algorithm flagged a 5.5 millimeter tumor that had slipped past the initial human review. Each time, the workflow followed a similar path. AI flagged, humans rechecked, and a second chance at life opened up. Barbara's case is not a miracle, it's a signal. The technology isn't flawless, but when it works, the difference is measured in years of survival. For patients like her, the line between missed and found is razor thin. In that space, the promise of AI medicine becomes personal and real. In 2016, Geoffrey Hinton, one of the founding fathers of deep learning, made a bold declaration. He said people should stop training radiologists now. He believed that within 5 years, machine learning would outperform human experts in reading medical images. The message landed with force. Medical students reconsidered career plans. Some switched specialties, haunted by the risk of investing years in a profession that might vanish. Advisors warned of a coming wave of automation that would sweep away entire fields. But the collapse never came. 8 years later, the numbers tell a different story. In 2024, American hospitals set a new record. They offered 1,208 radiology residency positions. The Mayo Clinic Radiology Department grew by 55% over the same period. Salaries soared to an average of $520,000, up 48% from 2015. Instead of mass layoffs, the field is facing its largest shortage in history. Clinics scramble to recruit new talent, while waiting lists for imaging stretch longer each month. Meanwhile, the technology kept advancing. By 2025, the FDA had cleared over 1,016 AI medical devices, with more than 4 out of 5 designed for radiology. Hospitals adopted these tools rapidly, aiming to boost accuracy and efficiency. Yet the demand for human expertise only intensified. Radiologists found themselves working alongside algorithms, not replaced by them. Hinton later admitted he was wrong about the timing, but not about the direction. The contradiction is hard to ignore. For all the hype about automation and obsolescence, the real world delivered a surge in both AI tools and human jobs. The promise of machine intelligence collided with the stubborn realities of medicine, where every scan, every diagnosis still needs a trained eye, a steady hand, and the judgment that comes from years of experience. The result is a labor market more chaotic and more crowded than anyone predicted. IBM once promised to bring the power of artificial intelligence to the heart of medicine. Watson Health was billed as a revolution, an AI system that could read medical records, scan the world's cancer literature, and offer life-saving treatment advice at the push of a button. The company poured more than $4 billion into the project, hiring 7,000 employees and signing deals with hospitals on 3 continents. But beneath the glossy marketing, Watson's brain had a critical flaw. It was trained on synthetic, hypothetical patient cases instead of messy, real-world data. When deployed at MD Anderson Cancer Center, the system struggled to make sense of actual patients. Recommendations veered off course, sometimes suggesting treatments that were not even approved for the diagnosis. After burning through $62 million, MD Anderson pulled the plug. A Florida oncologist, frustrated by the system's irrelevance, sent blunt feedback to IBM that it was a piece of shit. Hospitals in Thailand, India, and South Korea abandoned their Watson pilots as integration issues mounted. Physicians found themselves wrestling with software that could not adapt to local medical realities. In the end, IBM sold the entire Watson Health division for just $1 billion in 2022, a fraction of what it had invested. A former IBM engineer later described how the rush to market left little time for clinical vetting or physician input. The Watson saga stands as a warning. No matter how powerful the algorithm, ignoring the complexity of real patients and the daily chaos of medicine can turn even the boldest vision into a multi-billion-dollar cautionary tale. Stroke teams at major hospitals now rely on software that scans brain scans for signs of a clot before most specialists even get the call. Visas.ai's system, cleared by the FDA, cuts the average time to alert a stroke neurologist by 52 minutes, a gap that can mean the difference between walking out of the hospital or never speaking again. In dermatology, researchers at Heidelberg University put an AI through its paces against trained clinicians on skin cancer images. The algorithm reached an 87% sensitivity, outperforming most doctors in picking up malignant melanomas. It did not tire, did not miss subtle color shifts, and flagged suspicious moles that might have been dismissed in a busy clinic. Microsoft's medical AI has shown a similar edge in complex diagnostic puzzles. In head-to-head trials, it correctly solved 85% of challenging cases, compared to just 20% for physicians relying on traditional methods. These are not isolated wins. In the UK, an NHS mammography AI identified 11 breast cancers that human experts missed in a single screening round. Each catch represents a life rerouted, treatment started months earlier, outcomes improved, families spared a crisis. The pattern repeats across specialties. Narrow AI tools built for specific tasks quietly outperform the best-trained humans in high-stakes moments. For every Watson scale flop, there are a dozen stories of algorithms sharpening the front line, making the invisible visible. That is why funding keeps flowing, not for hype, but for the quiet, measurable gains that ripple through real clinics every day. In a clinic outside Bangkok, nurses lined up patients for diabetic eye scans, trusting Google's AI to catch signs of retinopathy. The software had scored over 90% accuracy in American labs. But on the clinic floor, chaos reigned. The system rejected image after image, too blurry, too dark, too much glare from the overhead lights. Nurses scrambled to retake photos, sometimes 3 or 4 times per patient. Patients grew anxious as their appointments dragged on, uncertain whether their care depended on a glitchy camera or a machine's invisible standards. In some cases, the AI deemed images unreadable and flagged nothing, leaving treatable disease undiagnosed and follow-up in limbo. Across the city, regulators began asking hard questions about data privacy. DeepMind, a Google subsidiary, had quietly received 1.6 million patient records from a London hospital without proper consent. The UK Information Commissioner ruled the transfer a breach of the Data Protection Act. Lawsuits followed, with patients demanding to know who had accessed their information and why. The promise of AI precision collided with the reality of oversight gaps and ethical blind spots. Bias crept in too. A Harvard study found AI's false negative rate for diabetic eye disease was 23% higher in rural communities than in urban ones. The same symptoms produced different recommendations depending on a patient's race, gender, or income. For frontline staff, the tools that were supposed to level the playing field sometimes made it harder to deliver fair care. Every breakdown, every unreadable scan chipped away at trust, not just in algorithms, but in the entire medical system. August 2025 brought a warning few in medicine could ignore. A landmark study published in The Lancet tracked the performance of 19 seasoned gastroenterologists across 4 hospitals, each with thousands of colonoscopies under their belts. The trial began with a simple design. For 3 months, endoscopists performed routine screenings with the help of an AI system that highlighted potential polyps in real time. Adenoma detection rates, the key measure for catching precancerous growths, rose as expected. But then the protocol shifted, the AI was switched off, and the same doctors returned to manual exams. What happened next stunned the researchers. Detection rates fell from 28.4% before AI assistance to just 22.4% after months of working with the machine. That 6-point drop was not a statistical blip. It was a 20% relative decline in the very skill that saves lives. The effect appeared even in the most experienced hands, with no changes in patient age, sedation, or exam difficulty. The only variable was the absence of AI cues. Investigators called it the Google Maps effect. Clinicians, accustomed to following on-screen prompts, lost vigilance and independence when left to navigate alone. Automation bias crept in quietly. Doctors began to trust the AI bounding boxes, scanning less thoroughly for subtle lesions when the tool was gone. Visual search patterns changed, and the muscle memory that once guided careful inspection faded after just a few months of routine AI use. By the end of the trial, the safety net had unraveled. The promise of higher detection had come with a hidden cost, the slow erosion of human skill. For patients, the risk was not just missing a polyp today, but the possibility that tomorrow's doctor might not remember how to find it without a machine's help. A mother sits at her kitchen table, scrolling through years of medical records and test results, desperate for answers. Her child has been sick for 3 years, 17 doctors, countless specialists, and still no diagnosis. Each appointment brings another round of uncertainty, another set of shrugged shoulders. The symptoms do not fit any textbook pattern: joint pain, unexplained fevers, a rash that comes and goes. The family life narrows to waiting rooms and late-night internet searches. One evening, she tries something different. She copies her child's full medical history into ChatGPT-4, the general-purpose AI that has been making headlines. The model sifts through the details in seconds, then suggests a rare genetic disorder, something so uncommon it barely registers in medical school curricula. It even recommends a specific blood test. Within a week, her child finally has a diagnosis. The relief is overwhelming, tinged with frustration. How could a machine trained on the world's medical literature but with no bedside manner succeed where so many experts failed? Stories like this are no longer outliers. In controlled studies, ChatGPT-4 can match or outperform physicians on complex diagnostic puzzles. On 52 challenging clinical vignettes, the AI produced the correct diagnosis in its top 10 suggestions 83% of the time. For the top answer alone, it was right 60% of the time, slightly better than many doctors in the same trials. These are not just statistics, they represent real lives rerouted by a line of computer code. The trust equation is changing. Parents who once placed their faith in seasoned professionals now turn to an algorithm for a second opinion. For clinicians, the ground feels less certain. If a chatbot can spot what 17 trained doctors missed, what does that mean for expertise? The promise and the threat are entwined, raising questions about responsibility, judgment, and the future of care. The next time a diagnosis is missed, the question will not be just what the doctor saw, but what the machine would have found. Inside the hospital's legal office, risk counsel fields a steady stream of calls from anxious physicians. The question is always the same. If the AI misses something, or if I do, who takes the fall? The answer is rarely satisfying. In most malpractice cases, courts still hold doctors responsible, even when a machine's logic cannot be explained. When AI flags a finding that a human misses, juries are more likely to judge the doctor harshly. If a physician overrides the AI and an error occurs, blame falls on them. If they follow the AI and it is wrong, the liability often lands in the same place. The so-called AI penalty means doctors are blamed whether they trust the system or not. Some companies are experimenting with new models. Digital Diagnostics, a retinal screening vendor, has offered to assume liability for its own AI in certain cases, an unusual move meant to encourage adoption. But these arrangements are rare, and most physicians still face the risk alone. Insurers are responding with new policies. Some now require doctors to complete AI training to remain covered. Others add exclusions for systems that are not FDA approved. Hospitals, caught in the middle, negotiate contracts with vendors that try to share risk, but the legal ground keeps shifting. Patients are watching closely. Surveys show 60 to 75% of Americans are uncomfortable with AI making medical decisions. 86% say their biggest worry is not knowing how the algorithm reaches its conclusions. Over 80% fear I will make mistakes that no one can explain. Trust is highest when doctors explicitly say they do not use AI. Yet the numbers tell a different story about the power of human-machine teams. In mammography, radiologists working alone achieve about 67% accuracy. AI alone pushes that to 73%. But together, the rate jumps to 83.6%, far higher than either can manage on their own. At NYU Langone, a senior radiologist points to these results and echoes Stanford's Curtis Langlotz. I won't replace radiologists, but radiologists who use AI will replace those who don't. The pressure to find a balance is mounting. Investors are pouring billions into diagnostic AI, with the market projected to reach $7.4 billion by 2030. Meanwhile, predictions for artificial general intelligence are getting bolder. Some experts expect AGI within a few years, others within a decade. The clock is ticking for hospitals and regulators to define how humans and machines will share responsibility, and for patients to decide whom they trust with their lives. Right now, over 1,000 AI systems shape medical decisions, yet trust in their judgment lags far behind the technology itself. As investment accelerates and AGI predictions edge closer, the real test isn't technical, it's human. Who do we trust with our bodies when even experts rely on black boxes? In medicine's new age, the stakes are no longer theoretical, they're personal. Join the discussion below.